Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel and to another video. As you can see, I'm not at my place here. I came to see my family for a few days here in Italy. It's kind of a tension situation right now because of the war going on in Ukraine, so everybody is on edge. Let's hope that the situation will get solved soon. Anyway, in this video, I'm going to install Arch Linux using the March 2022 ISO with the KDE desktop environment, Btrfs file system and Timeshift. So without too much talking, let's get going. So here we go, guys. We are ready to install Arch Linux with the March 2022 ISO. And in this video, we're going to install it with the Btrfs file system, the KDE desktop environment and Timeshift. Now let's begin here. I already booted up the ISO on my machine and it is connected to an Ethernet cable. So I have already an IP on my machine, but we need to check the IP anyway. So let's type in IP space A here. And you can see now it's using by default IP-C with color. And you can see I have an IP here on the second interface ending with 7.2. And that's because, as I said, I have an Ethernet connection. Now, if you have Wi-Fi, you need to use the IWD utility by using IWCTL. Then here you typically would type in station and then the name of your Wi-Fi adapter that you would see in the list above. It could be something like WLAN 0, for example, or something else. And then connect. And then the name of your Wi-Fi. Then you will be asked for the passphrase, and once you enter the passphrase, you will be brought back to the IWD prompt, to which you can hit Ctrl D on the keyboard to go back to the ISO. Now, if you have an IP, again, you can check this with IP space A, and if you do, we can now synchronize the network time protocol by typing in time date CTL, set-NTP for network time protocol to true, and then hit enter. So now we can check also if we can synchronize our repositories by typing in pacman-sy. And you can see it's synchronizing just fine. So let's see, lsblk here to check our disk. You can see there I have one disk called STA and it's 50 gigabytes in size. So we need to first partition the disk, and because this is a UEFI machine, I have to create an EFI partition that is mandatory. And I'm going to create only a root partition because later, using the Btrfs file system, I'm going to create a home subvolume as well in there. And I'm going to use here ZRAM for this installation, so I'm not going to create a swap partition or a swap file. So let's type in gdisk /dev/sta. Gdisk is the tool used to create GPT labels. And you can see they're creating new GPT entries in memory. Now it's important you use GPT here because it's a UEFI machine. So the first partition I'm going to create here, it's with N for new. Partition number 1, it's fine, that's the default. The first sector is also fine here for the default. And the last sector defines the size of this partition, which is going to be the EFI partition. So for this EFI partition, I'm going to create a plus 300 megabytes EFI partition. And the file system here is not Linux because it's a EFI system partition. The code for that is EF00. And you can see change type of partition to EFI system partition. So next we are going to create the root partition, so N for new. And I'm going to accept here all the defaults because I'm going to accept basically the rest of the disk for the root partition. And the Linux file system code is also fine. And now we can write these changes to the disk by typing W and hit enter. We're going to confirm this by typing Y and hit enter as well. And the operation has completed successfully. So that means if I type in again lsblk, you can see I have STA1 and STA2. Now we need to format these partitions. Let's begin with the EFI partition. So MKFS for make file system. This has to be formatted with the FAT file system. So FAT and -F32. It's going to be a FAT32 file system type /dev/STA1 and then hit enter. Next, we are going to create our Btrfs file system. So mkfs.btrfs on /dev/sta2 and then hit enter. And Btrfs is now there. So now we need to mount our root partition to the mount directory, create our subvolumes, then unmount the directory and remount the subvolumes with its own options. So let's begin by typing in mount /dev/sta2, that's our root partition, on /mnt. So now we can create our subvolumes, but first let's move into the /mnt directory because it's less typing. So let's create our first subvolume. So btrfs and then subvol create. So the first subvolume here, it's going to be the root subvolume, which is denoted by the @ symbol, and then hit enter. I'm going to pull up the last command here and also create the home subvolume with the @home, and then hit enter. So that's going to do it for me in this video. I'm just going to create these two subvolumes. Now I need to switch back to the main directory, so cd, and I need to unmount the root directory by typing in umount /mnt, because we need to remount those two subvolumes we created before. So to do this, we can type in mount -o for options. Now we have several options we can use here for btrfs. The first one I'm going to use is the no A time or no access time, which is going to improve the read and write speed of the disk. So it's going to improve the performance of the system as well. Next, I'm going to use the space cache version 2. And the reason why I'm not using version 2 is because version 1 is not working by mounting this. Now this is happening since 2 ISOs, I believe. And so we need to use version 2 if you want to use the space cache option. I'm going to use also compress. And for this, I'm going to use ZSTD, which is going to use compression level 3, which is fine for me. I'm going to use also the SSD option, which should be actually automatically recognized by Arch, but I'm going to add it here nevertheless. And if you do have an SSD, I definitely recommend that you use the discard equal async option, which is going to improve the performance of the SSD. And then we're going to use, of course, also the subvol option to define the subvolume, which is going to be equal to the @ subvolume, which is the root subvolume. The partition we're going to use for this is /dev /sta2, and the directory to mount this is /mnt, and then we can hit enter. Now, before doing the same for the home subvolume, and also we need to mount the EFI partition, we need to create the two directories for these. So let's do this by typing in mkdir, then /mnt / I'm going to open the curly brace. I'm going to create the boot directory and the home directory into our mount directory. And then we can close the curly brace here and hit enter. Now we can mount again the home subvolume by using the last two commands here, and we can tweak this by adding home at home here to define the home subvolume. And the directory we want to mount this is under /mnt /home, and then hit enter. Now we can mount also our EFI partition by typing in mount /dev /sta1 on /mnt /boot, and then hit enter. So if we type in lsblk, we have there our mount points, which are correct. And now we can install the base packages. So to do this, we can type in pacstrap /mnt. So we need to basically install the base packages in the mnt directory, and the packages are the base packages. I'm going to install the Linux kernel, the latest Linux kernel, and also Linux-firmware. I'm going to install also Vim and Git, and also Intel-ucode because this machine has an Intel processor. If you have an AMD processor, you can install, of course, AMD-ucode, and then hit enter. Now, depending on your internet connection, this is going to take some time to install. So I'm going to pause the video here, guys, and I'll be back with you once it's done. So the base packages are now installed, and we can now create the file system table with the mount points for our system. So to do this, we can type in gen fstab -U, and we're going to take the mount points we created under /mnt and append them under /mnt /etc/fstab, and then hit enter. So now we can move into the installation by typing in arch-root on /mnt. And now we are ready to install the base system, which I'm going to do with my script, which is on GitLab. So I'm going to type in here git clone https:// and then gitlab.com/eflinux /arch-install-base. Now this is my private repository. In the video description, you will find the public repository where you will not be asked for username and password. But this being the private one, I need to authenticate. and it's going to now download my repository, which if I type in ls-l, you will see on the top of the list Arch install base. So we need to move in there, cd Arch install base. And if I type in ls-l again, you will see I have several scripts in here. For now, I'm concentrating on the base script because that is going to install the base system only. So let me type in here vim and then base.sh. So these are basically the list of commands that you find also on the Arch Wiki to install Arch. I've done a lot of videos on the channel about installing Arch line by line. So if you're interested to know what each line does, go ahead and check those videos out. But you basically find everything here in one script concentrated, which makes the installation a little bit quicker. Now, the only thing I'm going to change here is basically the no confirm option, because I do want to confirm here the packages. And I'm going to install also in this video Pulse Audio. And I'm going to remove actually Pipewire because I'm going to make this a complete Xorg based with Pulse Audio installation. So I removed also Reflector because it was there twice in this script. I have to change this, and I'm going to remove for this video Pipewire. This is really a matter of choice, but I've done also a lot of videos with Pipewire, and this one I'm going to install Pulse Audio basically. As for the rest here, if you have an AMD card, you can enable these lines to install the AMD drivers, or if you have an NVIDIA card, you can also enable this line to install drivers for NVIDIA. Now, this is a virtual machine for me, so I don't need to do anything specific. These are the two lines for installing grub and creating the configuration file. And then I'm going to enable some services like Network Manager, Bluetooth, printing systems, and so on, and create a user for the system with my username. You can replace, of course, with yours here. Creating a password here also for my user. You can change this password to another password, and also adding the user to the sudoers group to give the user sudo privileges. Now let me recheck here. I think I made a typo. If I'm not mistaken, there you go. Here it's Pulse Audio. So that looks better to me. And we can save this file and exit Vim. And let me clean up the terminal. Now we need to give execute permissions to this script so that it can run. So we can type in chmod +x on base.sh. And now I'm going to go back to the root file system and run it from there. So /arch install base and base.sh. So it's going to create first the locales, as you can see there, and it's going to now ask me to confirm the packages, which I'm going to do. So I'm going to accept the defaults here. Now for the desktop portal, I'm going to use the number 3 because I'm going to install KDE later, and I need to remove IP tables because it's in conflict with NFT, and proceed with the installation. So again, this is going to take a moment depending on your internet connection. So I'm going to pause the video here again, guys, and I'll be back with you once it's done. So here we go, the packages are now installed. Now there is still one thing we need to do before we reboot the machine. So let me clean up the terminal here and type in vim/etsy/mkinit.cpio.conf. Now here we need to define the modules. And under the modules here, I'm going to add Btrfs because we are using the Btrfs file system. You can also add here the modules for your graphic card. So if you have an AMD card, you can add here AMD GPU. And if you have an NVIDIA card, you can add NVIDIA. Now, I don't have these, so I'm not going to add them, but Btrfs should be there. So we can then save the file and exit vim with :x. And we need to regenerate the initramfs by typing in mkinit-cpio-p on the Linux kernel you're using. In my case, it's Linux because I'm using the latest Linux kernel, and then hit enter. It's going to take a moment here to regenerate the initramfs, and then we can reboot our machine. So let's type in here exit to go back to the root ISO, and type in umount -r on /mnt to unmount all partitions. And now we can type in here reboot. So here we have grabbed the bootloader. So let's boot up our machine. And you can see the machine is booting up fine. So we can enter now our username and the password. And we are now in the system. So let me increase the font sizes first. Set font space -132n. So you can see also better. Now let's check if we have an IP. So IP space A. You can see there I have an IP ending with 74. Now if you have Wi-Fi, we have Network Manager installed. So you can use an MTUI here. And you can go to activate a connection. You will see the list of networks here. You can select yours. You will be asked for the passphrase, and then you will have an IP as well. So again, I'm going to type in sudo pacman-sy to check for the repositories here, authenticate with my password, and you can see it's synchronizing just fine. So let's clean up the terminal. And we are ready now to install the rest of our system. So we have the repository that we installed from GitLab, but it's in our root file system. So we need to copy it in here. So let's type in cp-r because we want to copy everything in the directory. And the directory is arch install base. Now replace this, of course, with the public repository that you downloaded before. And we're going to copy it here in this directory, which is represented by the dot. So if I type in now ls-l, you can see arch install base is in my home directory here with the proper permissions. So we need to go in there, cd arch install base, and again ls-l. You can see there the scripts we have. Now I'm going to use now the KDE script because we want to install the KDE desktop environment. So I'm going to edit this very shortly, vim kde.sh. Now what I'm going to do in these lines here, I'm going to synchronize the network time protocol, synchronized in the 2 clocks, using a reflector to create my mirror list here, refresh the repositories, and opening the ports on my firewall. These packages actually we can skip. And here I'm going to install Xorg, the SDDM display manager, all packages I need actually for KDE. Of course, you can replace these with the ones you want. And at the end here, I can actually remove this Flatpak. I don't use this right now for the video. And in the end here, I'm going to enable SDDM for the display manager. And then it's going to basically reboot the machine automatically. But I'm going to comment this because I want to do it manually. And this is all there is to it. So we can basically save this file and exit the bin. And again, we need to give execute permissions to these scripts. So chmod plus x on kde.sh. I'm going to go back to my home directory and run it from there. So / arch install base and then kde.sh. Now, again, it's going to synchronize the network time protocol, opening the firewall ports. It's going to take a couple of seconds to do this. And then I'm going to be asked to confirm the packages for installing KDE. So you can see it's refreshing the repositories. Now it's opening the ports and asking me to confirm my packages. I'm going to accept all the defaults here and accept also this one as well. And then press enter for the installation. Now again, this is going to take some time depending on the internet connection. So I'm going to pause the video here, guys, and I'll be back with you once it's done. So the packages are finished installing, and I was asked for the root password because the time to install the packages was too long. So I had to re-authenticate again. And so we enabled also the SDDM display manager. So what we could do now, we can reboot the machine and we finish the installation in KDE. So let's type in a reboot and hit enter. So I'll take a moment here to display again the grab bootloader. So let's boot up Arch. And if everything went well, we should be greeted by SDDM. And so here we have SDDM. It's not, it doesn't have any theme yet, but it doesn't matter. Let's type in the password. And we should be greeted now by the KDE desktop environment, which is going to take a moment to boot up the first time. And there you go. We are now in KDE. So let's open up here our menu. And you can see we have already several applications installed. So what I need now is the console because I need to finish up the installation with Timeshift. And let me go full screen here and increase the font size so you can see better. And again, let's type in sudo pacman-sy to see if we are still able to refresh our repositories, and it works fine. So what we're going to do now, we are going to install Paru, the Arch helper for the AUR, and then we're going to install Timeshift. So let's type in git clone. We need git for installing Paru anyway. https://aur.archlinux.org/paru. I'm going to install the binary because it's a little bit quicker. And now we have the repository, so we need to move in there, cd, and then paru-bin, and then make pkg-si. And it's going to basically build the binary for us. Well, actually the binary is already there, so it should be installing this very quickly. So let's proceed with the installation, and Paru is now there. So now we can use it to install Timeshift. So Paru -S and then Timeshift, and then hit enter. So which one we want to install? I'm going to install the first one because the binary, I believe it's out of date, but I'm not 100% sure about that. So I'm going to accept the review here and hit Q and proceed with the installation. So what it's going to do here is going to first install the dependencies for building Timeshift, which is going to take a moment, and then it's going to build the binary itself. Now, it shouldn't take too long, but nevertheless, I'm going to pause the video here, guys, and I'll be back with you once it's done. So Timeshift is installed, but while we are at it, actually, we could install also Timeshift-AutoSnap, which is going to basically create snapshots of your system once there are updates for your system. So it's not going to make updates when you install new packages, but if there is an update for your system, it's going to create a snapshot for you. So this is now installed as well. So we can close actually console and we can open up Timeshift, which should be now installed. There you go. We will need to authenticate. And I think I did a typo there. And we need to configure basically here Timeshift the first time. So you can see it detects we have Btrfs. So we can click next. Now it's going to take the snapshots, of course, on the disk. Again, Btrfs is not a backup solution. It's a snapshot solution to reverse the system if you incur into problems. So we can then click next here. We can have the schedule here set up. This is fine for me. The queue groups are already enabled, and I'm not going to include the home subvolumes in the backup, so that's fine. And this is now complete. So we can click finish, and we have Timeshift installed and enabled. So we can create the first snapshot here by hitting create. It's going to take a moment. This is basically taking a photo of your system. Now, there is a last thing here. What we need to do is to install, or create, better said, ZRAM. So let's open up again our console. And let me increase again the font size and type in paru-s on ZRAMD. Now, ZRAMD is a package which is going to basically create the ZRAM for you, and it's going to use the ZSTD compression, which is the one I prefer. So it's going to take a moment again because it needs to install Go, which is the basically language on which ZRAMD is written. And it's going to take a moment here to create then the package and install it. Then once it's installed, we need to basically just enable the systemd service that ZRAMD is creating. And once we have that, we have already the ZRAM up and working, and the system is going to be complete. So I'm going to pause the video here, guys, and I'll be back with you in a second once this is done. Well, actually, it's already done, so I'm not going to pause the video here. So let's clean up the terminal and type in lsblk. Now we need to enable the ZRAM package by typing in sudo systemctl and then enable --now zramd.service. And now again, lsblk. You can see we have ZRAM here with 8 GB and it's already active and running. So this is it for the installation with the March 2022 ISO of Arch Linux with the Btrfs file system, the KDE desktop environment, ZRAM and Timeshift. If you have any question, let me know in the comments below. So this was the monthly install of Arch with the March 2022 ISO with KDE, Btrfs and Timeshift. If you have any question about the video, let me know in the comments below. And thank you so much for watching, guys. I'll see you very soon in the next video.